We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Friday, May 29th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Jessica.
It's Friday, everyone.
Friday. Also Keys with us.
TGIF.
And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we're finally at the end of the work week, but this Friday is also a day with a special meaning. Today is World No Tobacco Day, a global campaign that raises awareness about the dangers of smoking. Now, smoking rates may be falling in some countries, but debates around cigarettes and vaping and also personal freedom are still very much ongoing. So today we're going to start off by asking a simple and a bit of a personal question, whether our two panelists are smokers. And more broadly, Jessica, starting with you, what are your thoughts on smoking culture these days?
Yes, to celebrate non-smoking day, I tried to be absolutely fair in considering both sides on most issues. But smoking is a quite interesting one because as a non-smoker with weak respiratory system, I always had a lot of trouble when I was around smokers nearby. I actually had to walk around or even cross to avoid them on the road, to avoid street smokers. And I would sometimes even leave restaurants that allowed open smoking in some places overseas. I really don't have much against people who smoke, but I really think there should be stricter regulations on open smoking as well as cigarette trashing because they're actually quite disruptive to sewage system, environment, and I think just public hygiene in general. Yeah.
And I know you're one of the most empathetic people I know. So for you to be so set on this,
thank you for saying that. Yeah,
there's a lot about smoking.
I try to be very open on both sides, but this one I'm a little bit
hard.
It's a bit hard, yeah.
What about you, Ki?
Well, she says she want to be a fair, but then non-smokers can never be fair because they're most of the time victims of everything from health and everything. But honestly, I used to smoke before, and I hear what smokers have to say. And compared to 10 years ago or 20 years ago, public etiquette has gotten much better. Smokers didn't care about non-smokers before, but nowadays they acknowledge the fact that it could hurt them and people around them. And public awareness also far better than before. And a box of cigarettes has gotten much more expensive compared to, a few years ago. So I would say things are better, but also things are getting a lot tougher for smokers.
Right, so today we're bringing back our weekly debate segment, and this time we're talking about smoking. Now, I should probably admit this discussion could get a little heated, no pun intended, because as a non-smoker like Cheska, I may already be slightly biased. So today, let's have our smoker and non-smoker representatives battle it out. So, do conflicts between smokers and non-smokers happen often, Cheska?
Yes, and just like you, Sujin, I would try to be very open and try to keep it level to really represent the voice of some of the issues non-smokers face almost every day. And this sort of conflict and debate between smokers and non-smokers have always been a big issue online, and even I would say sometimes offline in real life. So starting in the 1990s, Korea began introducing designated non-smoking areas, and over time smoking bans expanded dramatically. And just like he said, the etiquette of smokers have improved. So today most indoor spaces are smoke-free, including bars, restaurants, and even PC cafes that used to allow smoking, I believe. But despite these changes, smoking in outdoor public spaces remain common, as well as many people actually smoking in apartment spaces where the smell travels through open windows as well as ventilators. Now, furthermore, I think the tension actually spans to environmental issues, discomfort, as we will discuss further, how smokers can actually get a second-hand benefits at workplaces.
Right, so this debate never really seems to disappear. It feels like every few months another smoking-related argument goes viral also online. And one of the biggest flashpoints is probably smoking in public spaces. So you kind of mentioned this before, but what do you think about people smoking on the streets, in open air?
To just say no, please don't. Just please don't. But I'm quite confident that all non-smokers would probably be very hard against public smoking because the smoke travels everywhere and it is extremely uncomfortable and even more harmful to some young children, pregnant women, just to name a few. And in public, non-smokers are vulnerable and exposed to indirect smoking without any sort of protection. I think furthermore, when people smoke in public, there's also another issue of people spitting and or throwing their cigarette trash. Of course, there are many many responsible smokers, but there aren't enough laws, fees, or regulations for those who actually use the public street and spaces as their personal ashtray, which I don't think is doing any good for non-smokers, as well as reputation of other smokers who are doing extremely well. Yeah.
It kind of forces people who are just walking down the streets to be exposed to secondhand smoking.
Yes,
which is not fun.
And I think you've seen it before when you're walking right behind a smoker, the person would just toss the cigarette on the side and keep walking, or outside the car window when they're driving. And I think these are not doing any benefit to smokers. Yeah.
So, Ki, what are your thoughts on this?
It's already 2-1, so I don't know how we're going to win over those with you. But with the exception of a few inconsiderate people, like Cheska was mentioning, the rather rude people, most smokers tend to smoke in the secluded area, for example, like behind the buildings where few people pass by. One of the main reasons smokers end up smoking in public spaces is the severe lack of designated smoking booths. So, in the 90s, we have introduced designated smoking area, but in Seoul alone, there are roughly about 1.3 million smokers, whereas the number of public smoking facilities across the city stands at 136. That means about 10,000 people have to share the single smoking area. And I'm not encouraging anyone to smoke, of course, yet there need to be more places where they can smoke so that they wouldn't hurt non-smokers.
Well, I'm really glad to have you on the show today because I haven't thought about from their perspective how there's not enough, it's not that they want to smoke in open spaces. There's not enough spaces. So I do see both sides here. Non-smokers feel uncomfortable breathing it in, while smokers argue there simply aren't enough designated places to smoke. But these conflicts don't just stay outside on the streets anymore. So have smoking complaints in apartment buildings also seen a rise, Cheska?
Yes, because according to one platform report, apartment complexes in Korea receive around 400 smoking-related complaints, not year, every month. That's quite a lot if you think about it. Yeah. Many residents complain about cigarette smoke drifting in through the windows or about encountering smoke in elevators, shared apartment spaces. And from the perspective of non-smoker, it's completely understandable why that feels unpleasant and almost intrusive because this is your home, right? In fact, for the past 2 years, and I have a personal experience, I actually lived in a very expensive office style. It's like a condominium style here in Korea. Fully furnished, great amenities, got the gyms, pay the fee every month. And yet almost every morning when I got up to get ready, just to come to Arirang, I could literally smell the smoke coming in through my bathroom ventilator. And as a non-smoker, I would make complaints, and I wasn't the only one because almost bi-weekly, they would make blast announcements saying, please don't smoke in the bathroom or public spaces for other people. But it kept continuing, and as a non-smoker, I had a very, very unpleasant experience. Yeah.
What's so funny, I actually heard a story from when I was getting my makeup done today. She was saying how recently she's been really stressed out because her neighbor smokes. And then the smoke has permeated into her house so that it has affected her clothes.
Oh, because the smoke, yes.
She puts her laundry on and she now can sense like the smoke stench on her clothes too. So this could be very stressful.
Very, yeah.
That's why she was staring at me today. Okay. But again, that's true too. But smokers are not allowed to smoke on their own apartment's balcony. Again, it's their property, but they can't because they have to respect public etiquette. And when they go outside to smoke for the designated area, people complain that smell lingers in the elevator afterward, which is sort of helpless, right? And many people are very sensitive about smell. They even complain about certain food being cooked.
Yes.
So when I took my elevator in my own place, I sometimes can smell smokers were in the elevator because right after they smoke and they go inside the elevator, then the smell sort of lingers.
In the lift, yeah.
Yeah, those smokers try to keep the rule. They smoke outside at the designated area. And so, like I said before, there are quite large population of smokers. It'd be nice if we can give them a little bit of room, a little bit easy on them if they can keep the public etiquette.
It's true. People have become more aware of these rules. So apartment smoking disputes really seem to be impossible to avoid these days. Even if someone smokes at home, the smell spreads easily through hallways, windows, and ventilation systems. At the end of the day, it feels like this issue comes down to balancing personal freedom with consideration for others. And that's why we also wanted to hear directly from our viewers. So we ran a poll on the Arirang News YouTube channel asking, what do you think about smoking in public spaces? And here's what the results showed. So around 86% said smoking in public is a public nuisance, citing concerns over secondhand smoke, unpleasant odors, and discomfort in crowded areas. Meanwhile, 14% said people should be more understanding towards smokers, arguing that the lack of designated smoking areas often leaves smokers with limited options. So the results really show how much public attitudes towards smoking have changed over the years, especially when it comes to shared spaces. But these debates don't stop once people head indoors or clock into work. So what are some workplace conflicts over smoking breaks, Key?
Right, so there was a heated debate online over the issue of smoke break during work hours. The argument was that the smokers often step out for cigarette breaks while working, and when you do include the time spent walking to and walking from the smoking areas, the total time adds up quite a bit. So as a result, some people complain that smokers effectively end up working fewer hours than non-smokers. Now, we have a separate smoking area. A couple of decades ago, you could have smoked anywhere, even inside a building, including this very building. Admit sometimes it was not fair that there was a cigarette meeting where they say they get some fresh air, then they go out, they talk about some important things, that they make a decision, and they come back. You know, and there's even an episode about smoke talk on old famous TV show called Friends, where one of the main characters, Rachel, she tries to get some, favor from her boss and win her heart. So she joins a smoke talk, but she finally couldn't do it because she was not a smoker. That sort of incident may give you unfair image, and that was why this was a heated debate.
Things have changed, but that societal pressure is also there. So I've actually seen this debate explode online quite a few times, and for non-smokers, it can feel like smokers are getting extra break time also throughout the day as well. And that brings us to the bigger question of fairness in the workplace. So what do you think about smoke breaks personally, Jessica?
When I watched that Friends episode with Rachel, I could not agree more with what she was going through, because I've actually experienced it quite a few times at workplaces. So according to data from the Korean Disease Control and Prevention Agency, adult smokers in Korea smoke an average of about 13 cigarettes a day. So if roughly 6 of those are smoked during work hours, then once you include, like he said, walking to designated areas and returning, the total time spent on walking breaks can add up to nearly an hour a day. And from the perspective of non-smokers, that can feel very, very unfair. Also, smokers end up informally discussing work or making important decisions together during smoke breaks. So as a result, some non-smokers, including myself, could feel very excluded from those conversations or networking moments, even though they're not choosing to take the same breaks. And sometimes I really genuinely wanted to take a break and get a fresh air, but I didn't have the legitimacy of taking a smoke break. While I saw other workers get up and leave together every, let's say, an hour or 2 hours, and then come back talking. And I have no idea what had happened, and they feel more freshened up because they got their smoke break. So sometimes it felt very unfair, yes.
Also, I feel like it's kind of sad that you might feel pressure to start smoking to participate in those meetings.
Yes,
right?
And I think in the past, people felt more of that pressure because it was more common to smoke. So I think especially men, they wanted to join in the conversation. So I know they say we learned smoking to get work done.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is your experience with it? What are your thoughts on this?
A lot of things I say makes me very small, but smoking can also be considered a form of break time, like coffee break. Some people go to restaurant frequently. Some people end up chatting on their message app or talking on the phone for quite a few times. So frankly speaking, no one really stays for full 8 hours and stay fully focused. So sometimes some argue that smokers are being judged too harshly. And they also point out that legally, even brief moments away from one's desk during working hours by the Labor Ministry, such as stepping out for a cigarette or for a cup of coffee, are still considered parts of working hours unless excessively abused.
What's funny, Zach, is that technically they can argue that they're still being productive because these meetings are being held as they're smoking. So this really feels like one of those debates where neither side will ever fully agree. So one side sees smoking breaks as a special treatment, while the other sees them as just another way people take short breaks during work. So we also wanted to hear about this directly from our viewers. So we ran a poll on the Yada News YouTube channel asking, should smoke breaks during work hours count as working time? So here's what the results showed. About 69% said they should not, arguing that smokers effectively receive extra break time compared to non-smokers. Meanwhile, 31% said smoke breaks should still be considered part of working hours, viewing them as short personal breaks, no different from getting coffee or briefly stepping away from a desk. So honestly, I personally thought the results would lean more towards it not counting as work hours, but it still seems like a decent amount of people feel smoking breaks cross the line from a quick breather into an actual workplace fairness issue. So to wrap up our discussion today, Cheska, what are your final thoughts on smoking culture?
Please don't smoke. But obviously that is not the end. That is not the solution. But as a firm believer in personal freedom and choice, yes, as smoking is also part of a personal choice, one must be able to exercise it. However, personal freedom always comes with the responsibility to not harm others as well. And clearly, smoking does have, as we discussed today, in multiple layers of social, environmental, and even economical impact when it comes to smoking in not such a positive light. Therefore, ban on smoking is not the solution, but a more defined, clear regulations and penalties, as well as more contained spaces for smokers. And when I actually saw the survey, it actually brought me this idea of actually designating a personal time for both the smokers and non-smokers, so they can use that time to take a sick break or to grab coffee or just to step outside. So there is sort of, this positive image for both people who are taking smoke breaks as well as those who are stepping out because they need a breath of fresh air.
Everyone deserves a break at work, so that is true. What are your thoughts on this?
I knew this debate was going to be very one-sided, but
it was very fair, I think, for non-smokers.
I used to be a smoker just because the reason I started smoking was because it was a social thing. I wanted to have more context with my superior when I started working, and all my superiors were smokers. So to join them, I had to learn smoking, which I quit now, by the way. And I know how smokers feel. They basically are not respected naturally, of course, and it's a choice they've made. But if they have more spaces where they can smoke without harming others' health, they would follow public's common sense more strictly. And smoking in public spaces are already banned. You end up paying fine if you do smoke in, for example, bus stations or park, right? But honestly, for those of you who smoke, listen to Uncle Key. From the bottom of my heart, I would recommend you quit smoking for yourself and also the people around your family, friends, and everybody. But if you must smoke, please, let's avoid harming public health.
What was the best thing about quitting smoking for you?
That's a great question.
I feel healthier for some reason, and my voice has gotten better. I can breathe longer, and because my job involves obviously making my voice condition always a certain level.
And you have a great voice too.
Thank you. And if you smoke, then sometimes you can see the cracking voices sometimes, and so overall you feel healthier, and you can proudly say, I don't smoke. So that's another good thing.
Oh, Susan, if I may, Key, what was the response from people around you when you actually quit smoking? What were some of the things that they noticed?
Well, everyone was favorable of me, and then they were questioning, oh, you're not going to smoke anymore? So I was like, yeah. And then, they liked the idea that I am joining that movement of quit smoking. And if you actually take a look at I don't have an official record, but I'm pretty sure the amount of people who are smoking, the smoking population has gotten way smaller than before, especially after COVID too. So I think it's a right movement that we're going into.
You say you started smoking, part of it was work-related as well.
Right.
Do you feel like people around you have also stopped?
A lot of people start with the curiosity. Number two, maybe social gathering, and then they get addicted to it. A lot of substances that in a cigarette have, you get a habit of it, and that's the worst part.
The routine and
the routine, and then it affects your health, of course, right? So it's really hard to get out of it. So we have a funny saying that it's not quit smoking. You're trying to hold on to it.
Right, you're trying to endure.
Right, endure the time that you're not smoking until a certain period of time. So, guys, again, smoking is bad for your health.
Listen to Uncle Key.
Please listen. Try not to smoke, especially for you and people around you.
Right, well said. So, whether you're a smoker or a non-smoker, one thing is quite clear: this debate is probably not disappearing anytime soon. And as smoking culture continues to change, the challenge will be finding a balance between personal freedom and also consumer consideration for others. And maybe today is a perfect excuse to finally quit or at least avoid smoking near your coworkers. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. And News Gen will be back on Monday at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussion. A big thanks to Cheska.
Thank you.
And also Ki.
Thank you. Happy No Tobacco Day.
Yay!
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully we managed to clear the air better than most smoking zones. We are
News Generation.